And now, ladies and gentlemen, we're back in business with a showdown between the Skaven, who shall be led by THICC. He's also going to be accompanied by Gorich, and today, my friends, we face off against SIGVALD, who actually has been buffed. So I have to admit, before this game, THICC and I were talking about the matchup and kind of joking about SIGVALD, and I was, be like, oh, Gorich will just beat the shit out of SIGVALD, but little did I know, he actually got some pretty decent buffs. So SIGVALD here does, of course, now have 100 base leadership, so he is pretty close to unbreakable. I think as far as lords go, I think that he probably has the highest base leadership of anyone. I think that isn't unbreakable, of course. Yeah, he's got 100 base, I think. Yeah, you can see 100 base, +5 for the flank secured, and +4 for the nearby encouragement. On top of that, SIGVALD now does have perfect vigor, so over the course of a long battle, he's just not going to get tired. He's going to fight at full combat capacity for the entire battle, and really, do that work for Slaanesh. On top of that, he does also have Slippery, Heroic Killing Blow, and Stand Your Ground. So historically, I think he had Foe Seeker and Deadly Onslaught, but now he has Heroic Killing Blow, which puts him up to like 700 weapon strength, actually making him a very viable and decent choice against some of the big Skaven lightly armored monsters. And Slippery as well, melee defense doesn't hurt, so yeah, he's much, much better now. And honestly, it feels weird to say it, but I feel like SIGVALD is actually a decent competitive pick against Skaven. Now, as far as my force goes, in the front line, it's going to be Skaven Slaves. We do also have a Plague Priest. We got Throth the Unclean on his Rat. We got Big Papa Gorich, and it would be interesting to see who would win in a duel between Gorich and SIGVALD in a vacuum. Perhaps after this game's over, we can take a look. But yeah, really good, anti-infantry. He also has a little bit of an AoE attack with his spinning ability, which I don't think I brought. But he's got the Blood Shield, which is actually not bad against Chaos, because Chaos often does bring Spirit Leech and Fireballs. So getting that 15% mitigation on those abilities, I think, is very good. And Warp Frenzy, yeah, hits like a truck. So front line is going to be Skaven Slaves. We got Rat Ogres defending the back line with some Warp Grinders. One unit of Wolf Rats, I think, one or two, both of which are going to be pulling back. But really, I think the best unit that the Skaven, one of the better units the Skaven have right now, I don't know if they got buffed because I haven't gotten my hands on the patch notes yet, is the Poison Wind Globes. These guys, in pretty much every single game I've been using them, have just been insanely good. So hopefully this game you guys will get a chance to see how truly powerful they can be. So right now, the Skaven Horde is going to be advancing here on the Chaos Horde, which actually seems a little bit bigger. That's not true. Well, that's because Skaven Slaves have 135 models, but generally this is a pretty big Chaos army. Arrow does have Spawn mixed with Marauders. He also has some Warhounds here and some Marauder Horsemen here in the back, so looking to get some scraps going. So the Globadiers are going to be throwing, and just watch this Value City. So they don't have to make like the best contacts, but they hit absolutely everything, which is insane. And now that's going to be triggering, I think, 600 damage. So let's let this tick here for a second. Here you can see in the front, I am summoning some Clan Rats to block up the Chaos Spawn. But look at the damage that was done overall, just from like a tickling volley. It didn't even make the best contact. Now, if we actually pause and go down to these rats, you can see the damage value is already 300, and the total damage they've done is over 2,000, which is so good. And that's really just from like a tickling kind of poking volley there on the edge of that formation. But now the Mirror Guard are going to be suffering the wrath here of the Globadiers as Gorich gets there, and Gorich gets in there as well. And he should be doing some Slam Jam, Space Jam, spinning rat attacks. You can see, yep, there's the spin right there, clubbing back many of the Mirror Guard, who are taking some pretty huge damage. So far, the frontline fighting is going pretty good for the rats. We have been able to break down the Mirror Guard. Gorich is fighting Chaos Spawn, which probably isn't the best. But here in the center, we do have some Wolf Rats I've sent in to buffer against the Spawn. I believe Throth the Unclean's also fighting there, as well as the Plague Priest. But currently, SIGVALD doing some pretty good damage with Heroic Killing Blow. His weapon strength is up to freaking 780! And he's just karate chopping this Plague Priest in tandem here with the Chaos Sorcerer. So very nice catch there by Arrow. Certainly doing some very substantial damage. But of course, the Globes are still firing. I have Poison Wind Globes here. I have some back here, which are about to be compromised by some Spawn. But thankfully, I have Wolf Rats, as well as Skaven Slave Spears that I can send in, and hopefully they'll be able to push back those guys. And currently, you can see the Mirror Guard are pretty damn beat up at this point, still being afflicted by the Globes. And I'm honestly starting to think that the Globes, though they serve a different purpose than the Mortar teams, I honestly feel like the Globes might be a little bit more of a cost-effective pick these days. I know it's a little bit of a controversial opinion, but so far I've had outstanding success with them here in this beta. Anyways, here, Poison Wind Globe still throwing away, dropping some bows here on the Chaos Spawn. We got Gorich fighting in the front line, who is going to be buffed up by Remoldered, because THICC was doing a beautiful job not only Spirit Leeching him, but also using all of his Marauder Horsemen to really just kind of, butter him down and just do some great damage. So Bounce Power at this point is pretty much dead even. Troop count is 805 for the Skaven, 675 for Chaos, so proportionally, a lot of my Clan Rats have been beaten, but that's pretty much their job. Here the Globes are still firing, so let's go ahead and take this point here in the mid-game to evaluate the current status of the Globes, who have earned 2 chevrons. Look at that, 13,000 damage, 1,000 gold earned back for 550 invested in those guys. And the other Globes on the other side probably are in a similar department, even though they're about to be crumped by a bunch of Angry Chaos. Yeah, look at that, 1,300, 13,000 damage. it's just so good. Like, I've been experimenting with the mortars, but globes obviously have a higher model count. They have a similar functionality in terms of their damage, but the mortars have less models firing overall at the cost of range, or at the benefit of range. But in this case, in close quarters, if you're expecting a rush from either Wood Elves or Chaos or Norska or anyone, you guys, of course, will be seeing a lot of replays of me using these globes over the course of the beta here. But Throughout the Unclean pushing in now, trying to take out those Warhounds and terror out them off, because, of course, Throughout the Unclean does cause terror on his mighty Brood Horror. Gorge and company have been able to kind of restabilize, but Arrow still does have that very scary mobile core of Marauder Horsemen, and a lot of my buffering, like my Rat Ogres and Clan Rats and Skaven Slaves, are starting to disappear, which means I don't really have too much that can separate the Marauder Horsemen from the big value targets like the Plague Priest and also Throughout the Unclean. But honestly, it's a really close game still. Globadiers are back online. Going to be throwing into some of these Chaos Heretics here in the back. You can see my Wolf Rats and some Skaven Slaves going to be jumping on these guys, and Throughout the Unclean going to be coming over. He does not have anti-large, but he still has pretty good base combat stats, 58, 60, 372, while he's poisoned, of course. But he's getting some good damage on this Chaos Sorcerer, so going for a gooning attempt, and that's something that I think Skaven are going to be very good at now. You can see there, Gorge does get a leaping attack, doing some good damage on the retreat there of that Chaos Sorcerer. Globadiers trying to get back, but it looks like they might be in harm's way. As his Royal Thickness, look at SIGVALD. His cardio is chaos, I think should be the name of this replay here. Is SIGVALD is going to be pushing through with his perfect vigor. 127 leadership! This dude just will not break. I mean, he's not damaged, of course, but that is so much leadership. So at this point, I'm like, all right, boys, we got to go in for the Alpha Strike. Bring in Gorich, bring in Throughout the Unclean, bring in the Plague Priest. Let's get those spinning wild attacks there from Throughout and see if we can break down some of the spawn. And maybe isolate SIGVALD, because I think Gorich, even though he's a little bit damaged with Throughout, could probably 2v1 SIGVALD and do some pretty good damage there. In the back, you can see my Warp Grinders. Haven't done too much this game, honestly, a little bit disappointed, but they were able to snare down some horsemen and buy me some time. But here, it looks like the epicenter of combat is continuing to fester with Skaven and Chaos. Big loss for me, though. It looks like my Plague Priest, I had to pull him away from SIGVALD or I was going to lose it, but nonetheless, Arrow does have really good battlefield control using his Marauder Horsemen, and the Plague Priest is going to be pushed back. He's trying his best, man. He's got, 34 leadership left, 600 HP. Skaven are still scrapping hard. Throughout the Unclean, chasing down and trying to screen out the Marauder Horsemen, and I know he has regeneration, so I don't really care about taking a couple spears on him. I'm just trying to keep him away while, potentially Gorich gets in there with Warp Frenzy, but SIGVALD's just beating him down. SIGVALD also has his personal Beer Guard and some spawn, and Gorich actually breaks. So Gorich is going to be running, which is so bad for me since he's kind of healthy still and a very expensive unit. But here come the Globes again. Globes throwing into a blobbed Chaos Army, which is just Value City. Hitting Horsemen, hitting Mirror Guard, hitting Spawn, which again, the THICC actually does a fair amount of damage, even against monstrous infantry, much like the Chaos Spawn here. So Poison Wing Globes throwing away, dropping some bows, but it looks like Chaos is coming here. SIGVALD might be a little bit too thick for me to handle. He's still pushing in. The Chaos Army is also in tatters. You can see very, very little left. They do, of course, have the Sorcerer and the Horsemen and some light infantry, but for the most part, I think SIGVALD's going to be the carry. Like, without SIGVALD here, I might feel a little bit comfortable with my monsters, getting terror routes and breaking down all the really beat-up Chaos forces, but SIGVALD's hustling, man. He's got 40 speed. He's moving. He's been, not skipping leg days. That's for sure. Apparently, there's a rumor going around that he did get a butt lift in this DLC with actual physical change. So perhaps that's something we can examine in later videos, but maybe not. We'll see. Here, Rat Ogres fighting Marauder Horsemen on the backside, and now I'm just trying to basically get my troops together, pick off whatever I can, so I come over after these Marauders here, but SIGVALD's like this inexorable force, just moving around the battlefield, and no matter where I go, I can't escape him. He's truly the manifestation of chaos. There's no escaping it, as always he's saying there. Throughout the Unclean and Gorich there, going to be going in and doing battle here against SIGVALD, and trying their best to bring that boy down, but looks like Siggy, man, he's pretty healthy. Gorich does get a couple blows there, which is nice. Gorich, of course, has crazy combat stats. He had 90 plus melee attack for a second, 650, bonus for his infantry, great armor piercing. Currently just trying to take out that last spawn, and Gorich just punches that thing in the face and takes it out. But now, the troll toll has to be paid. SIGVALD is one of the last bastions here, so I'm just trying to get the spawn before I go. But SIGVALD, man, he's persistent. 2,900 HP. Throughout the Unclean, getting a couple nice attacks there, but now you can see Gorich is going to be running for the hills, and Throat probably will not be able to beat SIGVALD in combat. He does have pretty good AP. Maybe if Throat was like full health, but Footlords, of course, don't get knocked over anymore, so SIGVALD, they do, but it's not as frequent. It's much harder to actually, pin them down to the ground and be really obnoxious about that. So SIGVALD's doing his thing. A little bit of fast forwarding here will save you guys all some pain. Throughout the Unclean Broken, Arrowcrastic, the Dark Lord of Chaos himself, bringing SIGVALD back to where he deserves to be. Now, all jokes aside, I do think SIGVALD is actually pretty decent now. The combat prowess he has, the perfect vigor, the leadership buff, so many things that make for a cheap persistent lord that's, you know, opens up a very wide army like this, because he costs almost nothing. Look at the value. 2,300 on SIGVALD. Deathcaster got 1,400. Spawn 600, 1,000, 970, 857. You know, little hounds did their pieces, but really some of the big brown winners for him. Infantry didn't do too much. You can see the Chaos Infantry just got destroyed and really didn't pay for themselves. But the Marauder Horsemen, you know, 1,100 there, 1,000 there. They really doubled up on their value for sure. But yeah, big winners for Chaos were SIGVALD. The Spawns did okay, you know, not bad. Most of them like just barely paid for themselves or didn't. But the Horsemen plus SIGVALD were just the dark terrors this game. Throt did pretty good. You know, Gorich definitely didn't pay for himself. He's 2,000. And honestly, Gorich isn't bad in these matchups, but in retrospect, I'd rather just cut him and get more assets in my army, like more Rat Ogres, more defensive units, maybe some Skaven Slave Slingers to poke back against the Horsemen, or a Mortar team to shoot the Horsemen, because that's one thing Globes can't do. But if you take a look, the big winners for my army are the Globes. 14,000 damage and 22,000 damage, 1,700 gold value, and 1,500 gold value. Those guys just did so good for themselves, man. And I really recommend it. When you guys get your hands on this, make sure to give them a try. I think they're worth a look at the very least. I've had great success with them in almost every game. They're a unit that always pays for themselves, at least in my experience. But anyways, well played to the Dark King Aerocrastic. A lot of great battles between him and I. I'll be going up here on the channel soon. And thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoy it, and we'll see you guys back with more content soon. Take care.